You're listening to another episode of Honor Best Behavior, and today I have a very special guest. He is the Assistant Program Director, Music Director, and co-host of the Fallon and Zach Show on KDWB. Welcome,
Yeah.
Zach Dillon.
What's up? How are you, Kelly?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It was awesome. I got the email, and it's like, believe it or not, like not a ton of people asked to be on their podcast. I don't know if it's more of like a he'll never come on my podcast type thing, or I don't know what it is. Maybe people don't like me. Maybe you're the only one that likes me, Kelly. But I do want to point out your shirt right now because your shirt is pretty badass.
Thank you.
Let's see the whole thing. I love tequila, but below the tequila,
here it is, right here.
it says Fallon and Zach.
Fallon and Zach.
I wasn't making it up. That's a real shirt.
And I would have bought every single Zach Dillon t-shirt they had at the fair, but I think this is the first time that your name's been on one. That's sad.
I mean, it only took, 8 years for them to, put me on a shirt?
Yeah.
It took Fallon jumping onto my show to be like, all right,
Rude.
well, we got to have a Fallon show. And we got to have a Fallon t-shirt, so we'll add Zach's name in because it'd be rude to not. But I like the color of that shirt. I wear that shirt a lot, actually. It's a really nice, like, cream color.
Yeah, it goes with everything.
Yeah, and you're rocking it. So thanks for the support.
I am a big fan of the show, and but when I did see the shirt, I think I might have missed the episode when you guys talked about loving tequila. So where did that come from?
It wasn't specifically tequila. I think so we launched the Fallon and Zach show on the week of the state fair, which was chaotic in and of itself because we have the state fair and we're out there every day broadcasting live, and it's just this whole big animal that we have to undertake every year. Like nobody can take time off during the state fair. It's like you are there, and that's what it is. And so we always knew that, but like when they said, "Hey, launch date's going to be August 21st," we're like, "Are you out of your mind? Are you kind of crazy, right? Are you messing with us? Like, is this August Fools? Like, what's happening right now?" But we did it, and we're both professionals. We've been doing this a long time, and so we made it work. But the one thing that we wanted to do was like just be in a studio and not in front of people, trying to work our show and what we're going to do on the show and different bits and different segments and all that stuff. And so that was kind of hard to do from the fair. But one of the stories that we said early on in the show is that one time I did Lake Patrol, and it was literally, this was probably like 3 or 4 years ago. I did like one of the very first Lake Patrols. We go on Lake Minnetonka. We do like the whole, like, we bring our street team and we give away like free stuff. We can't give away alcohol because that's illegal, but we give away like bubblies or whatever the sponsor is and free little frisbees or whatever it may be that summer. And the very first boat that we got up to, now the first Lake Patrol can be the water can be very cold, like depending on how the winter was. Like coming off last winter would have been awful. I mean, I don't know how long it took for that water to warm up. Anyways, we get to the first boat, and the first boat was these two women. They were like maybe upper 30s, low 40s. I have a really bad judgment on ages, but we get to that boat, and I'm like, because I hadn't jumped in yet, because I normally jump in. I'll swim up to people's boats and take shots with like bachelorette parties and stuff. Like I'm fun. Like I like to be in the moment with these people. It's like it's Lake Patrol. Like we're hanging out, and so I asked one of the women. I was like, "Hey, is the water cold?" And the woman literally does this. I'm not even kidding. The hand of God. She goes, "I don't know. You tell me." And I was like, "Wow, that's how this Lake Patrol is gonna go? That's never happened before." And so
it's hard to match that energy, right?
Zach gets flashed at Lake Patrol. That's like that was the big running joke or whatever. So I think it's just like everybody. That wasn't necessarily tequila, but she was intoxicated. And so I think it's just that may have actually nothing to do with the tequila story, but I felt like you wanted to hear that story.
Yeah.
Has somewhat to do with tequila, but I think everybody loves tequila, right? Like that's like a universal love, whether they drink it or not. Another story, because we get wild on tequila, right?
You also, just as you age too, go from like bottom shelf tequila to like Patron only as you
gotta have
age.
the good stuff. Yeah. And so we figured, well, everybody loves tequila and everybody should love Fallon and Zach. So we'll put I love tequila and Fallon and Zach, and it worked out. So it's a very long-winded, I don't know if this is what you expected when you asked me to be on your podcast, because like you said at the beginning before we started recording, I can just talk.
I can too. So, but I'm trying to let you have your moment because I get mine all the time. I mean,
Oh
you
no,
get
that's
yours every
okay.
day too. So,
This is your show.
this is my show. That's right. Well, today it's the Zach and Kelly show.
You can have top
See,
billing. It's fine. It can be Kelly
I'm
and
gonna let
Zach.
I'm gonna let you have the top for once. See, poor thing.
That's okay.
All right. So my son and I do this podcast, and one of the things that we talk about a lot is what do you want to be when you grow up? My son is in ninth grade. He's 15.
Oh wow.
Trying to kind of get that treadmill going of his
Yeah,
brain pattern. Like life isn't just video games.
that's a
So
tough one.
I think like
Well, I mean, why can't they just be professional Fortnite players? I don't
well,
understand.
I've tried to tell him that, like, if you're going to spend this much of your life playing video games, like, you need to be streaming, you need to be bringing
You need
something
to
to the
be,
table in this
yeah, you
household.
need to be making that money.
That's right. Bring it to mama.
That's
But
right.
I think I read somewhere that you knew you wanted to be in radio since you were 14, which is young.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's when I started in radio. I started when I was
You
14.
started.
I
So how do you
started,
do
yeah. So,
that?
so I actually knew I wanted to be on the radio much earlier than that because I just always had this love for music and love for entertaining people from a young age. Like center of attention type, young kid or whatever. And I used to have that like old Fisher Price microphone thing, and I
I
used to,
love
like
that.
go around like fake interviewing people and stuff. And it was always like a part of me. And when I was like actually early when I was 14. So like right when I turned 14, I was able to work like in Massachusetts where I grew up, which I guess we'll talk about. But I grew up in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Every state has different rules. I don't know what it is in Minnesota, but you could be 14 and work there. When you were 14, you could get a job. And so like my goal was to get a job so I could afford the equipment to record like a demo tape, which back in the day it was cassette tape. So, a
Yes.
demo tape to give to the local college radio station GM because my sister's, if all of this is not like Maury Povich type stuff, but my sister's best friend's friend was the GM of that radio station. And so I had an in. And so I'm like, oh, if I could just do this, because I have nothing else to read, like it'll be really bad quality. Like I want to impress these people, you know what I mean? Like I'm 14, so like what do they expect from a 14-year-old? But so I literally just worked that entire summer and made a demo tape, and she called me in. I don't know if she knew I was 14. I think maybe she was briefed that I was 14. But like she said, I was so impressed with like just your ability to do things that you've never been trained to do. Like you just kind of a natural at it. Like how would you like to do a show every Saturday from I think it was like 3 to 7 or 4 to 7 or whatever. She says, but there's one caveat. It's that it doesn't pay, which I was fine. I was 14. I had just made money. I had no bills. My parents weren't charging me rent.
I hope
Like
not
you're
at
like you're
14.
about to do your ninth grader, right? Make them bring home the bacon. But so I really didn't have an issue with that. But the other part was that I was underage. I was 14, like as far as the rules and regulations for the college. That nobody under the age of 18 could be in a college facility without like someone over the age of 18. You know what I mean? Like there had to be an adult present. And so that meant that it could even be my mom. It didn't have to be faculty. It just could be someone of the age. And so my parents literally I had it for like 2.5 years. Every Saturday they would like swap off. And so one parent would come with me for the entire show and just be there for legality reasons. And I would do my show.
Nice.
And so that's how it all started. And it was an alternative radio station. So they played a lot of like Incubus and Primus and Rage Against the Machine. And like,
Yeah.
it's not that I'm not a fan of that stuff, but I was always a pop guy.
Yeah.
And so they had this deal where if you got like an underwriter, because again, it's not a commercial radio station, so you can't get like commercials on the station, but you can have someone underwrite your show, and that just means that they're kind of sponsoring it and they give you money every month or quarter or whatever, and that you get to mention their name. It's not in a advertising manner. It's not like, you can't go off on a 30-second spiel about, the deals that they have and all this stuff. It can't sound like a commercial. It's just like, hey, this program underwritten by Bob's Pizza.
Mm.
And it was a pizza place near my house, and this guy would go in like every month or 2 months or whatever, was giving me $50 check. I'd give it to the college, and that made me able to play pop music, because if you got an underwriter for your show, you could choose whatever format you wanted.
Hustler. Look at you.
So I played pop music, and what's the one type of music that college kids don't like? Pop music. At least back in the day, they just were not a fan. They like that whole like underground hip hop, alternative scene. Like here I am playing Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys, and they hated it. All the other kids. First off, I was 14. No one else was 14. Everyone was in college. So here's
Yeah.
this 14-year-old kid coming in, running the show, playing pop music at a college radio station. I mean, I was not. I mean, I was well liked, but I mean, with the other kids, I think there was kind of like a, who else does this kid think he is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 14-year-old kid coming in here running things. It's like, and so that just basically, I was able to get a lot of experience through that, and most of it obviously was self-taught. I wasn't taking courses or anything. I just, radio is one of those things where it's like at the end of the day, you don't need uh like to go to college for a bunch of years and get that diploma, you know what I mean? Like I've never been asked at a radio station, hey, let me see your diploma. Like it's
Yeah.
not a thing. It's like if you can talk in complete sentences, you can be witty, you can be funny, you can have ideas, you can, I'm in the programming world too. Like you introduced me assistant program director, so I make, some decisions on the programming side of things for the radio station. Like if you have those abilities, those come like without training or like, without a diploma. It's like you can't teach someone to complete a sentence or be funny. It's just like you either have it or you don't. And so um, I did go to college though, and I dropped out of college, which is one of my few regrets. We actually did a topic on the Fallon and Zach show the other day. It was like, have you ever thought about like sat back and thought about like what if you went this way? How
Yes.
your life would have turned out. You can't imagine it because I love my kids. I love my wife. Like my life is fine. Like I love my family. Like I can't imagine going the other way because it wouldn't be the same. You know what I mean? Like I just can't. I'm not like a past thinker, anyways. But we did this segment. And it made me think, and I'm like, man, I dropped out of college after the third year of my college, and I went and I took this like professional full time radio position in Connecticut. And I thought at that moment, because when you're younger, things are magnified, and you're like, I'm never gonna have this like chance again to get this job. BS. Like I know I could have got a job when I finished one more year of college, but again, that path I took led me to everything that's happened in my career. So if I had gone for the fourth year,
Right.
I wouldn't have had that same job, which led to the next job, which led to the next job. It would have been jobs, but it would have been different. Would have never met my wife, would have then, of course, never had my kids. And so it's just a really weird thing when you start thinking about it. And I'm just like, I hate that I dropped out. But on the other hand, I'm like, I couldn't imagine not. But I've always had this thing that at some point in my life, I would love to like go back and just finish that last year. Cause it's like, what's 1 year,
Yeah.
right? Like, I can't believe back in the day, I really thought that like I would not get another gig if I didn't take this one. And it
And
wasn't even
now
that great, but back in the day, like it was a big deal for me, you know?
And now, like, you're where you want to be. I'm assuming. I mean, with your like, especially your
Yeah.
family and your wife and your kids, you have all those things that you want, and you couldn't imagine it any other way. So now, like, what the hell? You can just finish college and get that done, and then you've done all the things that you wanted to do.
I think Minnesota's been great, and we were coming up here. I got here June of 2016, so this year, literally in June, will be 8 years, which is just kind of crazy to me because at one point I moved within iHeart. I've worked for iHeart for many years, and so iHeart would move me to different markets and stuff. So I moved 5 times in 7 years at one point,
Jeez.
and some of that was like interstate, but like a lot of it was cross country. And so, but I think about when I was doing that, we either had no kids or just a little kid. And so it gets a lot more difficult to move and uproot your family and stuff when you got kids that are older. Like my son now is 12, and he's very involved in the baseball scene in the town that we live in. He's in middle school now, and it's like my daughter's in fourth grade and she's about to be 10. And it's like the thought of moving now is just like a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before it was just like, all right, let's just pack the crib up and let's go. Now it's a little bit more difficult. And so it's nice that this has been such a great city for us and such a great radio station. I mean, when people talk about KDWB, they talk about it in the likes of like one of the best pop stations in the entire country. I mean, those
Yeah.
that those that live in the Midwest may not realize that like this pop station that I work for is like massive across the country. It's not just in the Twin Cities, not just in the Midwest. It's like this is a big deal, a radio station. And so um, I'm very blessed to be able to wake up every day and do what I love because it's crazy to think that like I get to be on the radio every day and I get paid to do it. It's just like it's a wild thought that back in the day when I was that kid holding that Fisher Price microphone, never thought that day would happen. Wanted it, but never thought it would happen.
Yeah. You always when you're younger, like you wish you kind of knew like what your future was going to hold, and you just probably were hoping for all those things, but probably never saw that actually
Yeah, and
lining up the way
honestly,
it did.
one of my big things when I was younger, outside of being on the radio and wanting the radio thing, was I was a baseball player.
Yeah.
Like I was 50% radio, 50% baseball. Like, to be honest, I mean, I knew that I could make it in radio. I knew that, like, obviously I had passion for it and I wanted it, but like there was half of me that really wanted to be a baseball player. And I think that that came from like even younger years, right? Like I think you ask any kid that's like 5 or 6, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a police officer, a doctor, a baseball player. But that's like the typical answers, what I mean? No one says like radio personality, you know what I mean? So I think the baseball player stemmed from even before the radio dream happened. And I was pretty decent baseball player as lefty, which obviously helps because there's hardly any lefties in the world, especially now. Like my son's baseball team, there's one kid that's a lefty out of 12 kids. It's just crazy to me. So I was well sought after because I could throw some heat. I was a pitcher, and I got scouted a little bit, but not enough for me to like go all in on it. And so eventually, like the thought of like giving it up was a reality for me. Like I couldn't do both. Like I grew up in Cape Cod, so I would spend a lot of weekends and summers and stuff. Not in college, I would stay in Cape Cod. Um, and on the off season and stuff, and even in season, it was just ridiculous. I would go home to Cape Cod. I would do a nightclub gig on the Cape. Now, where I went to school was outside of Boston, so it's about an hour and a half drive distance. So I would go home on a Friday night, do the club gig. I would come back for a 6 a.m. baseball practice on a Saturday morning, and then I'd go back to the Cape for another DJ gig on Saturday night. Come back Sunday for another practice at 6 a.m. Try doing that for like
No.
a few months. You just kind of get burnt out. You're like, I need to choose one because one
I'm
is,
tired just thinking about it. I don't know how you did it.
yeah, no, it's like one is going to get like naturally you can't keep up with that schedule, and so something's going to be sacrificed. Either I'm going to be terrible at my DJing, or I'm not going to perform in baseball. I just can't. And so that's when I gave up the baseball dream and kind of focused on the radio thing and dropped out. Like I said, I hate that word, dropped out.
Yeah.
I left college, and
You
like on
chose
the
a different path.
on like the credit card applications and stuff, it's like, what's your highest level? I'm like, some college. Like, I feel very fortunate to even be able to put that, right? Like, some college. Not all, some.
Well, and that's like, look at my resume. Like, look what I have accomplished. Like, don't judge me on my college level. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm very blessed
Yes.
to be able to do what I do and haven't done it for so long. I mean, I don't want to say it, I'm going to be 40 in May.
Well,
So I think
you're
back
younger than me.
14 to 40, what's that, 26 years in November. So
Yeah.
when I tell people that, they're like, "Wait," because if I don't say I started when I was 14 and I just say that number to them, 26 years, like, how the hell old are you?
Right.
Like that doesn't even add up. Like, okay, but yeah, 26 years. It's just I can't imagine my life any other way.
Either
Like
way. Yeah.
I have a lot of friends that I grew up with that they wake up every day and they're like, oh, I got to go to work. Like that's never a thing for me. Like I love going to work, and it's just like every day is different.
Hmm.
And some days, obviously, like anyone's job, are better than others. Today, really good day because I get to come on this podcast with you. I mean, tomorrow it's not going to be the same.
You're the best. I have to tell you when I was young, what I would tell my mom I wanted to be when I grew up. So I really wanted to be a rock star when I was a young girl.
Yeah.
But I had some reservations about that. And my mom would be like, why wouldn't you want to be a rock star? Like, that would be amazing. I mean, I know you haven't heard my voice, so there might have been some barriers there. But I was like, well, I don't want to have to like live at the radio station because I don't, you just have to wait for them to like play your song and then you have to sing it. Like, I didn't realize there were recordings. I thought that they
Oh,
like
that's
had to
so
come up and
funny.
sing their song every time they played it on the radio.
Wow.
So I was mind blown when I was like, "What? They can
So
have their own life? They don't live at KDWB?" Because I've
so
listened to
naive,
KDWB
huh?
forever.
You were so naive.
I probably still am, but it's okay. It's fun.
Yeah.
So I feel. Go ahead. Go ahead. I,
No,
I saw something. I saw the wheels turning and something great going to come out of your mouth.
no, I was waiting for you.
So I was going to talk to you about you were telling me about how you're from the East Coast. And when
Yeah.
I've listened to you on the radio for 8+ years, I never would have guessed that until I've heard you say it on the radio. But I don't feel like you have a strong East Coast accent. I
Well,
hear
the
it a
thing about
little bit more talking to you here, but on the radio, I would have never picked up
I
on that.
think I think the thing about radio is that you have to be able to like be in any city, right? So if I'm on the radio in Minnesota and I've got this thick Boston accent, like it doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like that wouldn't work. So I think early on, I've never had an accent. Like when I go home and I start like having a couple of beverages with my friends, like a little bit maybe, little bit slips. But my parents they have such a thick accent that sometimes I'm literally talking to my mom. My mom lives with me right now,
Yeah, I
but
was going to say now spending more time with her.
yeah,
Yeah.
she'll say something and I'm like, I don't even understand what you just said. Like, you're gonna have to slow that down, add some R's, please, to like the words you're saying so I can understand them. But she's like very very thick accent, and so I'm fortunate that I don't have that at least when I'm on the radio or whatever. But it's an awful accent. Like I'm not a huge fan of it. I mean, I guess people from the Midwest like you don't hear it as much, but you know like people in the Midwest they don't think they have an accent, but they do. You
That's
know, what I
because
mean,
we
it's
have the
just
best one. We have that like
right,
twang. Yeah.
right.
Twangy,
Um,
but not Southern.
I love the fact that I was born in Massachusetts, but there's nothing Massachusetts about me. Like I don't like seafood. Like I grew up
What?
literally in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, where it is the freshest of all seafood, like lobster, um, chowder,
Yeah. No R.
all of it. And I don't. None of my siblings actually. I have an older brother and older sister, and none of us. And it was fine with my parents because what they would say is that like if they would offer us the lobster, they'd be like, "The more for us," because it's not cheap. Like lobster is not
No.
cheap. It's never been cheap, and so if we didn't want it, they'd have the more for them. I like the act of fishing, like
Okay.
how, especially here. I mean, we've got great, the
Yeah.
Great Lakes and some awesome fishing on Lake
Land of
Minnetonka,
10,000
and
lakes. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I love the sport of fishing. Just don't eat the fish. I've just and so I don't know. I don't root for any of the sports teams anymore. So I really just kind of like left that in the past. It is a beautiful area of the world. You don't realize that until you move away. I think that a lot of people where they grow up, for a lot of people, they just spend their whole lives where they grew up and they don't ever explore other places. I've been fortunate to be able to see like different parts of the country and that's now shaped my like why did I want to leave Cape Cod so fast to experience like somewhat crappy cities. You know what I mean? It's like I grew up in a really nice place, but I think where you grow up, you just can't wait to leave it and
Yeah.
just figure out like what might be better. But then you come back and you're like, you know what? You don't realize that like it was super nice, and I mean, it's a really small area. It's really populated in the summer. Cape Cod is because it's touristy. Everybody that lives in New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, they all have like a home or a week that they spend on the Cape, and that's like literally how Cape Cod survives. Because in the winter, it's dead. Like there is nobody there in the winter, just the year-round guest or whatever, or year-round
And it gets
residents.
pretty
But
cold there in the winter, doesn't it?
it does. I mean, not. I mean, you're from here, so I mean, cold is it's warm there compared to
Okay.
here. To be honest, we get a lot more. I say the two differences, or I'd say the difference between here and Massachusetts is that it gets way snowier there.
Okay.
There's a lot more snow. I had a lot of snow days growing up as a kid, and of course that was before e-learning and all the fun things that the kids have now. It's like they don't even get a day off now because they can do it virtually. Like that's whack. I used to love
Yeah.
snow days with my friends, go out sledding, don't have to worry about school. Now it's just like, oh yeah, we're just gonna flip to Schoology or whatever, and
Yeah.
that's that. But I would
Fun
say that's the
police.
big difference. Gets way colder here. I mean, if we ever got to zero in Massachusetts, that would be really rare.
Okay.
I mean, single digits even pretty rare. It's like teens
So
in the really
demographically, how close are you to like New York? Because doesn't it get really cold in New York?
not as cold as you
No.
imagine. I mean, maybe like
Okay.
upstate New York, because upstate New York you're kind of near Canada.
Yeah.
Kind of up to like Buffalo. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know if you saw
West
that
Coast.
when the playoffs were happening just this past year for the NFL, they were clearing the
Yes.
seats and stuff.
Yes.
I mean, that's that's a crazy city right there. That they get some really extreme weather right there. But that's like upstate New York, like New York City.
Okay.
is fairly warm. Like that whole side of it.
They make
We
it
would.
look so cold when you see them on TV. Maybe they're just dramatic.
Yeah, yeah, probably. We would get like hurricanes there though.
Oh,
I mean
really? I
that's the
suppose.
difference.
Yeah.
Not a ton, but there were a few. Like I remember growing up, and um, they don't get as bad when they get to Massachusetts because they have all that time to just kind of weaken as they come up the coastline. But if you've never been through a hurricane, it's pretty rad. I mean, it's you know not something I recommend, but
No.
it's interesting. I've been through a tornado. I've been not literally through it, but tornado, hurricane. Um, I guess that's it. I've never actually been through an earthquake. Have you?
Oh, mm-mm. No, but my uncle just moved from Key West to Orlando,
Oh,
and they had been through a few hurricanes, and that was part of the reason why they moved. They were just so sick of all the cleanup and
well, in the
fixing
Keys
things,
especially
and
too. I
yeah.
love the Keys. We used to vacation down in the Keys every year. Every year we'd go down to the Keys. We'd drive down. My parents never flew anywhere, which is funny because they both fly now. It's like, really? We had to drive literally from Massachusetts to Florida every year. It was the longest drive ever.
Long, yeah.
And we would spend 2 weeks in the Florida Keys and go down to Key West and all that. Like it's awesome. Like the fishing down there is awesome. I guess the
Yeah.
fish are good. Like I told you, I don't
If you
eat the
eat
fish.
them,
My
yeah.
parents do. Yeah. But yeah, I could definitely see that because it literally one bad hurricane in the Keys, they're gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At least in Orlando, you're in state a little bit. By the time it gets to you, it's going to be a tropical storm. Um, maybe some trees down somewhere and some heavy rain. But I feel like Florida gets heavy rain every day. Like it's that like
So
I don't know
humid,
what it
yeah.
is, but they just get like there's one part of the day where, especially in like southern Florida, it just buckets rain, and then all of a sudden it's just sunny. Yeah, I'm actually going down to Florida next weekend. Or no, this weekend. I didn't even know what day it was. This weekend, spring training starts for
Oh,
baseball,
for baseball, yeah.
and so I'm going to go down. I'm going to leave early Saturday, and then going to go see a game on Saturday night in West Palm Beach, and then the next day drive across the state to Fort Myers to see a Twins game. The Twins play this particular game in Fort Myers against the Red Sox. And so it's kind of cool because the first game I'm going to see is an Astros game, and I'm an Astros fan. I know that
Okay.
like
I was going
is
to ask you
not
that because I know
popular.
you're a big Twins fan, but I was going to say, like,
Yeah,
being from the East Coast early, did you have
yeah.
any
So
teams that you took with you from that?
so when I was growing up, the Red Sox were really bad. Like they were one of the worst teams, and so I was like, you know what? I am a fair weather fan. Like I'm not going to root for a team that's really really bad. You know what I mean? And so I was like, I need to pick a National League team. I'm still going to root for the Red Sox, but let me pick a National League team. And it was the Astros because I liked a bunch of the guys that were on the team, and so it was like Lance Berkman and Bagwell and Biggio and all these guys that I really really loved. And so I'm like, all right, they'll be my National League team. And then what do you know? Years later, they moved that team to even up the American League and the National League. They moved it to the American League, and I'm like, oh no, no! Like Red Sox and the Astros are in the same league, so they play each other like 30 times a year. That's not fun. And then I moved here years later, and I do like to root for the Twins because I like to go to the games. It's super close to the radio station. We're in St. Louis Park, and it's
Yeah.
like two exits up in downtown. And so nice afternoon game after I'm off the radio or evening game. I love going to games, so I root for the Twins. But now that's three American League teams. So like they literally play each other 100 times a year, and it's like,
Uh,
it's not even fun. But so when I go down to Florida this weekend, though, the first game is the Astros. They're playing like the Nationals. Then the second game, because I'm only going to be there for 2 games. The second game is the Twins Red Sox. So I get to see all of my teams
yeah.
in a nice little visit to Florida. And I'm not going with my wife. I'm going with my buddy. So
Oh,
two
fun.
days was the max before I'd get any complaints by my wife. So if I was like, I'm
Oh,
going for 4 days, she'd be like, yeah, no, you're
no, you're
not.
not.
Yeah, so it's like super
No.
quick. Like I land Saturday afternoon, I'm home Monday afternoon.
Okay.
So,
My son McCoy and I, we were just in Florida last week and we went to Disney World for the first time. So that
oh,
was
did you love
magical.
it?
Yeah, I did. I think
That
I
was the
loved it more
first
than
time
he
you'd ever
did.
been?
Me, yeah. I mean, my son too, he hadn't ever been either. And now that my uncle he moved to Orlando, so
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was like, "You should come. Let's do Disney." And I was like,
So
"Okay."
what
I
was
mean,
your
I've never
favorite?
been.
Like, how many parks did you go to?
All four.
Like on different days? Like you did one park one day and
Two
like you
and
did the
two.
okay. So
Yeah,
you did like the
so
park hopper deal?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. So what park did you love the best?
Animal Kingdom.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm a
So
big animal lover.
yeah, I could see that.
So,
They do
yeah.
have like, I mean, Animal Kingdom now is much better than it was like when I was a kid. Like they have way more rides and it's like
Yeah.
way more of an attraction than it used to be. It used to be the one where it's like, you know what, we're not going to go to Animal Kingdom because we're like not at the age that we really care about zebras anymore.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so I'm obviously Magic Kingdom. Like my kids love Magic Kingdom. I've got my son on board. The best ride at Disney is Space Mountain.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Loves Space Mountain. And so we're actually going to go. I mentioned my 40th birthday coming up in May. We're going for my 40th birthday.
Oh,
So
are you?
yeah,
Okay.
this trip to Florida, my wife and kids will come, and we're gonna go and we're gonna celebrate my 40th birthday. I think on my 40th birthday, we're gonna be at Hollywood Studios,
Okay.
and then the day after, because my birthday falls on a Saturday, which is really convenient.
That
On
is fun, yeah.
Sunday, so the day after my birthday, we'll go to Magic Kingdom. And again, it's a quick trip, so it's just 2 days at Disney. But I was like, you know what? You could do the whole thing where you go to Vegas and celebrate your 40th birthday with just the wife. Or, my daughter's really at that moment where she just she hates not being with people on their birthdays, and
Yeah, I
especially like
love
her family,
that.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I one time for business had to miss her half birthday because half birthdays when kids are
Yes.
young, like it's a thing. And if you make it a thing, it's a thing. Like we used to do presents and stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh boy, what have we done? But I missed her half birthday one year, and she literally it was like a month until she forgave me because I had to be away. And I'm like, okay, well, if she cared about that, and I'm not here to celebrate my 40th birthday with my daughter, she's going to disown
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a fun family trip, and I'm very excited about it. It's another thing to look forward to, and we love Disney, and it's a like you said, it's a magical place.
It
Like it's
is.
just there's something about it. If people have never been, it's hard to explain it, but it's pretty cool to see like the kids' faces light up and they love the rides, and it's like God forbid we wait for anything in real life for like 45 minutes, but they're okay waiting in line to go on their favorite ride for 45 minutes. You know what I mean?
I know McCoy was like, "Oh my gosh, mom, I don't think I've ever seen you like revert to such a child." Because like it's so nostalgic, right? Like I've grown up
Yeah.
my whole life with Disney and now you see all of it. And like when you even see like a character, it doesn't feel like they're a person dressed up as somebody. It's like, "Oh my God, there's we saw like Timon
Yeah.
from Lion King." I'm like, "That's Timon." And my son's like, that's not really Timon." I'm like,
No, it is. I shouldn't ruin
"Oh."
the magic for you.
I know, but he's like, "I've never seen you like this. You're a 12." I'm like, "Yes, I am."
Well, when you are an adult and it's the first time that you go, even the second time, it's magical. But yeah, I mean, it's like you waited a long time before you went.
I
But
know.
that was cool to be able to finally go and spend it with your boy. That's cool.
That was fun, yeah. So my next question for you is, and I think I already know the answer based on what we just talked about, but do
Yeah.
your kids think their dad is cool? Like, do they understand? Like, I mean, you're cool, you like baseball,
Well,
you do fun stuff, but like you work at KDWB.
yeah. Well, for a while it didn't matter because like for instance, now it matters with my daughter because I brought her to Taylor Swift, right? Like we went to the Eras tour. She was my plus one. Like that's the greatest moment of her life. And now the only problem with that is that any concerts now moving forward are going to pale in comparison. Like it's going
Right.
to be like, you're going to bring me to who? No, I want to go see Taylor Swift again. But we are going next month to Olivia Rodrigo, which
Okay,
my
yeah.
daughter loves as well,
Oh,
and so that'll put me back on the cool map. But I think it's starting. It's starting because they realize that I have the ability to get them into places and get them to shows and stuff. And so for my son, um, I mean he likes music, but I brought him to like a Jonas Brothers show that was cool for him or whatever, but he's not like as obsessed as my daughter is on the music side of things. So, um, but I think in due time, right? Like they're going to get to a point where they're like, yeah, I bet my dad can get us tickets. Like, really? Really?
oh, yeah.
So I think to an extent it is. I think, like for my daughter, again, another story about my daughter is that like, my name will come up or whatever in a conversation with her, or like they'll be listening to the radio and they said something about Zach Dillon. She goes, "Oh my God, they mentioned you. Like you're famous. What's it like to be famous?" It's like,
I feel like they're getting to that age in school where like kids listen to KDWB, and so then they're
yeah.
like, she's like, "Oh, that's your dad on the radio? What?"
Yeah, we went ice skating the other day, open skate at like a little town rink, and there were two kids that were, I guess, in my son's grade. I had never seen these kids before, but I got on the ice, and one of the kids was like, "Oh my God, are you Zach Dillon?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, I he didn't even know what to say. He's like, I listen all the time. Like, what? And he's like, I'm like, Jonah, do you know these kids? He's like, yeah, one of them's in my class. I'm like, well, like my son doesn't care, but these kids evidently care who I am.
Right.
It's just, yeah, it's just it's a weird profession, right? Like it's back in the day, we'd be on the radio, and if you recognize my voice in public, then you'd be like, oh, are you
Yeah.
Zach Dillon? Now it's social media,
Yeah.
podcast. Like, I mean, there's no way no one knows who, if you're listening to the radio, like what they look like. You know what I mean? But before it'd be like imagining what they would look like, right? Before you
I
would know.
remember that, like, because when I was young, the internet wasn't a thing, right? So I remember, like, what does Dave Ryan look like?
Yeah.
Nobody knew. And same with like Tom Bernard from KQRS. Like, what does
Yeah.
that guy look like? And you'd have this image in your brain. And then when you finally saw them like a million years later, not to age them, but it was like, that's what they look like. You would have never thought that. But now kids don't have to
Yeah.
wonder anymore.
When I was 17, I was working for this like hot AC station where I grew up in Massachusetts, and I never like and the program director didn't want me either to just like openly say how old I was, because they just wanted me to just do the job and just not relate to my age at all, because hot AC station, you're kind of getting a little bit older demographic. So think of like Cities 97.
Yeah.
Like it's a little bit older. It's probably like more so like 25, 54-year olds. You know what I mean? So they didn't want like them to find out I was 17. Again, this is before like the internet really and all that. So nobody knew what I looked like. I just sounded of age. Like no one would think I was 17. And I had this one woman that would call me up consistently. Like if I remember correctly, it was like almost every day. And every time that we would talk, she would flirt just a little bit more. Just a
Oh,
little bit more.
yeah.
She'd be a little bit more edgy, like a little bit more like, and I'm like, I cannot tell this woman that I'm 17. Like, I need to just let her imagine that I'm whatever age she thinks I am, whoever she thinks I am. And so one time she finally mustered up enough courage to be like, hey, I'm having a cookout this afternoon if you want to come by. I'm like, A, I would never go, but B, if I showed up, she would never believe it. She would never believe I was this
No.
guy on the radio that she listened to was basically flirting with. Uh, she would never believe it. She'd think I was like the paper boy or something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh, that's funny. I bet you got that a lot years ago where the same people would call the time, like when they did like call in your requests, like they do the request hotline, you probably get the
Yeah.
same people all the time.
Yeah. I mean, to an extent, it's really random to think who might be listening to the radio at any given time. I did a morning show in Vegas earlier in my career. I think it was back in 2011, 2012. And we had this prison that listened to us. And that kind of sketched me out, because I'm like, man, like I never thought about it, but like you say the wrong thing, one of those
Yeah.
people get out of prison. Yee. So it's like you just never know. I mean, radio's free, first off.
Yeah, that's true.
Never been a thing.
Access.
So it's anyone can listen. And what else they got going on in prison back in 2012? I mean, they're listening to the radio, and so it's like, man, you just never know who might be on the other end of things. So
That's true. Who was a KDWB show host that you missed the most?
like that doesn't work here anymore.
Yeah, because I feel like there's been a lot of good people that have come through there. I mean, you
I
can
didn't
tell me who
really.
your favorite is now if you want to, but I didn't know if you wanted to do that.
I like them all the same, Kelly.
That's a poor answer.
Well, here's the thing. I work with Fallon every day.
No.
I've really grown to appreciate her and have a newfound respect for her. And
Your guys' chemistry has grown so lovely together.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
So I really like her, and I liked her before, like when she was on the Dave Ryan show. She's just a good person too. And then Dave's great. Like Dave, the cool thing about Dave is that like even though this will be 31 years doing the morning show coming up in June for him, like he still has the same passion as he did back when he started. I wasn't here when he started, obviously, but um, it's cool because he still brings that like passion and excitement to the show, and that's pretty crazy, right? Like he could be that person that's like, I'm better than everybody
Yeah.
else, and I don't even care, I'm just going to talk on the radio and whatever. Like he's not even that type of person. He's super down to earth guy. Like you don't stay in one position for 31 years if you're not like that, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like I have so much respect for him, and over the 8 years I've been here, like he's been nothing but like awesome to me, and all of that. And then we've had like a few different night people since I've been here. Um,
Colt.
Raven was here when
Oh,
I first
Raven. Yeah,
got
I love
here.
her. Yeah.
Yep. So I didn't really get a lot of time with Raven, but she was nice. Colt, like you
Love
mentioned.
Colt. Yeah.
Yep. He's a great guy. E White was after Colt. So E
Yeah.
White was here for a minute, and now it's Vaughn, who's our new
Yeah.
night guy. And so um I mean, truly, like I can't like pinpoint who I like currently still the most, but I would say I miss Colt because we did like a little podcast together for a little bit.
Yeah.
Two radio guys behind the microphone, which I gotta
I listened to
revamp
that. Yeah.
that.
hmm
Yeah, I gotta bring that back to life because that was a cool thing. But that was like a me and Colt thing, and with technology like we're doing this right here, we're not in the same room, right? So
Mm-mm.
we still could do it, but we're both really, really busy.
Yeah.
So the thought of like doing something on a weekly basis and like nailing it down and doing it is just like daunting to me
Yeah.
because go on vacation or I've got like a super busy day that day or whatever. And it's just like the thing about podcasts, and I'm sure you're realizing and figuring out, is that like consistency is key.
Yeah.
So, you have a consistent rollout of a new episode on a certain day of the week at a certain time, right? And then you keep at that, because then you get people in thinking that, okay, it's Tuesday and here comes a new episode of On Our Best Behavior, right? Or whatever it
hmm
is.
hmm
Um, that's big for a lot of people, and that's big for podcasts and the success for podcasts. And so the thought of that, like sticking to that schedule right now, at least, um, things are lightening up a little bit, which I won't go into detail of reasons why or whatever. But that's why I said maybe it'll come back when I have a little extra free time. But when I feel like I'm like working, and then when I'm not working, I'm like trying to be a dad and
Yeah.
trying to like, I coached my son's baseball team last year. I don't know how I did it. I was the head coach. I mean,
Yeah.
that was insane. This year, I took a step back and I'm like, okay, head coach thing, scheduling everything, all of that, that was a nightmare. So I'm just going to be the assistant coach this year so I can still be a part of it, still help the kids. And a lot of the kids that are coming back and playing on the team played last year. So that'll be cool. The head coach thing was just too much. And so like, I try not to like take on too many new things on my plate because then I get the side eye from the wife, right? Because she's like, and when do you expect to like be around? You know what I mean?
Well, and like we talked about earlier, your kids are at that age where like they want to spend time with you, and I
Yeah,
hate to tell you, and maybe you remember this when you were younger, but eventually like they get too busy for you. So you got to
I know.
soak it up while you can.
I know. And that's why we did the trip to Disney because I'm like, well, I don't just want to go to Vegas and just party and lose a ton of money. I might as well just lose a ton of money and make memories. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, look, when you go to Disney, you lose a lot of money. I
I
mean, you might
understand.
lose more than Vegas,
You
but
might.
the experience, the memories that you make, that's all worth
Forever.
it to me.
It's
The more
magical.
I'm stuck on this like FYP right now in this news feed of like just I think it's Switzerland. But I'm like, I need to go to Switzerland because
Yeah,
everything
you
I
got to
see
get out of
about
the country,
Switzerland,
Zach. You haven't done
I
that yet.
know. I've never been. Well, I've been to Mexico. I've
Okay,
been to
okay, that counts.
Mexico, and that was years ago. That was Cancun, Riviera Maya to be more specific. But outside of that, like I've never been anywhere. Not even to Canada. I've never even been up to
Yeah,
Canada.
I've
So
never
it's
either.
just
Mm-mm.
it's insane. But I'm stuck in Switzerland right now. It's like all
So
over my
beautiful.
FYP, and so many. Yeah, it's just like, oh man. It's like, why? Why? So the thing is, like, my wife, she let her passport expire.
That's right. Yeah.
So now you have to go through the whole process again. It's not like it's past 5 years. So if you let it expire and it's been within
10.
5 years, 10.
10.
Well,
It's 10.
after it expires, though, I think you get
Oh,
5 years to renew it,
oh, okay. I
and
know
then
that
after the
it's good for
five
10.
years, you have to go through a whole new process of getting a new one.
Got
Within
it.
the 5 years, it's a little bit easier process. If you wait more than 5 years, it becomes like a new application
Restart.
basically.
Got
And my
it.
kids don't have one, so
Well,
and the
it's a
thing about
perfect
that is
timing
that
for everyone to get
I
theirs.
know, I know. So look
The
for
stars are
Switzerland
lining up for
plans
you.
soon. I know.
Yeah, I was gonna say that about Colt too. I follow him on social media, so I know he's got two
Yeah,
little girls at home too. So he's probably in that same stage of life where his wife is probably like, no, you need to come, you need
yeah.
to come home.
But that's the thing. Like that's one of my things for 2024 is I'm trying to say no more.
Yeah,
But it's hard. It's like I love my job and I think when you start saying no at your job, it's like you become expendable. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this guy's not even though like you could say yes 100 times in a row. It's like a couple of no's, all of a sudden they're like, well, what's up with him?
and you're getting the side eye
Uh
at work. Yeah,
yeah. And so it's there's a fine line, but I'm trying to like say maybe more. How about that?
yeah, that's fair. What pop star have you not met yet that you want to?
Oh, that's a really great
Because you've
question.
met a lot of people.
I've actually never met Justin Bieber. I think
Okay.
Bieber would be cool. I've talked to him on the phone before. Like we did a phone interview one time when I was in Vegas. Not the same. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I don't count like the people like during the pandemic we did a bunch of Zooms with people and stuff, and I don't count that meeting them. You know what I mean? Like after they got off the video with me, they forget even who I was. You know what I mean? So it's like
that's
no
not going to
last.
happen today, right?
No, no, no. But I think Bieber would be cool. I didn't really love Bieber's early stuff, like most males
Baby,
did.
baby,
Yeah, it was a
baby.
bit too bubblegummy, but like I became a believer after he like released that album with like Sorry on it, and
Yeah.
I mean
Once
those are
he
some.
once he met Haley Baldwin, like
Yeah.
game changer.
Oh, for sure. So I
Yeah.
think he'd be cool to meet. I don't know, like he's. I don't know how like cool he is to meet. Like I feel like he might be one of those quick ones where he's just like, oh hey man, I'd be like, "Oh man, we talked years ago. What about you?" Just kind of like brush it off, I don't know. I mean,
Isn't that a
um,
hard thing about some people when you meet some people, like you have this expectation and then
yeah.
sometimes like they might not be like the friendliest or whatever, and then you kind of have a different opinion of them.
Well, and I would say that I kind of get the best of these artists whenever I get to meet them because they're briefed on the fact that I'm meeting them.
Yeah.
Not that I'm like a big deal, but it's like, hey, you're going to meet Zach Dillon. He's the program director or whatever, wherever I was, of this radio station. They play your song, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, I can't be a D to this person because they're one millionth of why I'm successful.
Right.
So I'm going to be nice and make sure I'm thankful for all of it. So I think I'm not just like a random person backstage. So I typically get like either I'm like last in the meet and greet or first. Like, hey, this is Zach Dillon. He runs this station or he does the afternoon show here, and all of a sudden they're like a different person,
They're like,
and they're
"Oh,
like,
hey
oh
man, what's up?"
yeah,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
thanks so much for the support. That's really
Yeah.
nice. And not to say that they're not like rude to other people. They're not. I mean, they don't want to have that image either. You know what I mean? But I feel like when it's my turn, they're a little bit more attentive
Mhm.
and respectful of it and super nice. I got like people that what's the one person you've met that like really left a bad taste in your mouth? Like who's been like the
Yeah.
meanest? I'm like, honestly, I don't have any of those stories because that can like they would never do that. Um, I've had really great experience. I've had short experiences, but that's just because of timing and stuff like that. You got to imagine like these artists that meet like hundreds of people every night at shows. Like it must get daunting for them.
Oh, yeah.
Like I would love it, but hate it. Like
It's
just
so hard, right? Because they have to remember like this is such a big deal for the person who is meeting them. Like if
oh, the
somebody
biggest.
pays for meet and greet, like they spend a ton of money, it's
Yeah.
probably a huge deal to them. And then yeah, you're just kind of going through the motions. So
Well,
it's
and
probably hard
these
to like
people
reel
like
that in.
a lot of these artists have changed these people's lives. I mean, every meet and greet that I'm ever in, it's always like some story about how your music like saved my life,
Yep.
or your music is like whatever. Like it's just I can't imagine night after night hearing those stories and stuff. Like it's got to be like emotionally draining for these artists too. And now since the pandemic and stuff, they've really gone away from doing a lot of meet and greets. Like there's hardly any meet and greets anymore. And I think the pandemic was a good excuse for these artists that were like
Yeah.
kind of on the fence anyways with the
Take
meet
a
and
break.
greets to be like, you
Yeah.
know what, COVID.
I know. My uh like my queen is Gwen Stefani, and so my husband's always like, "Do you want to meet Gwen Stefani?" And I'm like, "No," because I have had her on a pedestal since I
Oh
was, 15 years old, and what if she didn't like exceed that would be such a
yeah,
letdown for me after
that'd be ruin
half
your
of my
15-year
more
old
than
self.
yeah, more than half of my life. Like I don't even want to. I just want to keep her where I think she is, and that's
Well,
fine.
I've met Gwen Stefani years ago. She is super sweet, very soft spoken. It was when that tour was when she had the Harajuku girls,
Oh yeah.
and I met
Love
all the
Angel
Harajuku
music,
girls and
baby.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she was super cool. So if you ever get the chance, I would say don't you got to do it.
Yeah.
You got to do it because if she's your idol, like um it's a cool experience when you get to meet your idol. Like I got my mom to meet Steven Tyler
Oh,
years ago, and she's just
she
in
was over
love
the
with
moon.
this man.
Yeah.
She would like if Steven told my mom, like, Deborah, leave your husband and just you're gonna come on tour with me and we're gonna get married. Like she would have left my dad, like no problem. Like it just she was obsessed with this
Peace.
guy, and I got her to meet him back when I was like 16 because I was already like in the circuit of like
Wow.
knowing artist relations and all that, and so she was forever grateful for it. And then years later, I was in California at a artist showcase. It was for Rita Ora. Do you remember Rita Ora?
Yeah.
More like a socialite when she came over, but she like wanted to launch a pop career in America. And so I was in California at the Viper Room. Very, very small. It's about as big as this freaking studio. I feel like it's not that big of a venue. Very claustrophobic feeling. But anyways, I'm at that venue and I'm with the vice president of Columbia Records at the time, like just sitting next to her. And she goes, "Hey, by the way, don't tell anyone, but Steven Tyler might come to this time." I'm like, "Where are you going to put this guy? Steven Tyler, that's going to cause chaos."
Yeah.
Like Rita Ora is fine. Like nobody really even knows who she is at that moment. Like it's like you can, but Steven Tyler walks through these doors. Are you kidding me? And sure as crap, this guy walks through like midnight or whatever time it was, just because he wanted to like maybe collab with her, and so he wanted to see her firsthand. And he was on Columbia at the time, and so it just they made it happen. And anyways, end of the night, I'm like the first out of that venue because I'm like I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
We were staying right below the Viper Room, which is a hotel. I don't remember the name of it, but in the lobby is Steven Tyler. And I walk up to him, and because I'm still with the woman from Columbia Records, and I'm like, "You think I can say hi to him or whatever?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah, he's super cool." And so I walk up to him, like, "Hey, Steven, like my mom is like a massive fan. We met you years ago at River Rave in Boston, and like all this stuff." He goes, "Where's your mom at?" And I was like,
Oh,
"She's in Florida right now." She's like, "Get her on the phone."
oh,
Like,
how
what?
sweet.
Now this is like 2 a.m., right? And so I'm
Is
like,
Deborah going to answer the phone?
I'm gonna call my mom, and she's gonna be like, something's wrong because it's
Right.
super late. So I call my mom, like, "Hey, mom." She's like, "Everything all right? Everything all right?" She's always that like on the edge mom, where like she thinks every time you call her something's wrong. And so I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, but Steven Tyler wants to say hi." She's like, "What?" And so he takes my phone, goes in the corner of the lobby for
Oh,
5 minutes, and talks to my mom on the phone. I mean, this is my mom's hero.
yeah, that is so
And
sweet.
so I asked her like afterwards, like, "What'd you guys talk about?" And she's like, "Well, he had just bought a place in Maui, and my mom at the time was living in Key West, and so they were comparing like the two destinations, like because he was thinking about the Keys but opted to go
My
to
heart.
Hawaii." And so I'm like, "This is crazy, like in no other world." You know what I mean? And so, and she's met him a couple of times since then. We had a really cool experience in Vegas with him and Joe Perry, um and so she's met him I think now like 4 times. So it's like,
They're
you
buddies
know,
now. Yeah.
Yeah, he even kissed her on the lips once,
Oh,
and
that is
she
so
like
cute.
she melted.
I love that.
Like, where do I go from here? I just got kissed on the lips by Steven Tyler. I'm like, you may not want to be proud about that. You know how many women he's kissing on the
It's
lips?
like, do you know where those lips have been?
Yeah, no kidding. Yikes.
Oh,
Super nice guy though. And it's been cool to see like my mom just. I mean, she's just a wonderful woman, and that's the least I can do for her is connect her with Steven Tyler. You know, it would have been great if he like made her one of his wives. You know, like over the years, because that would
he
have
would
been
have been your
cool. Cool.
stepdad.
Wouldn't that be cool? Steven Tyler's my stepdad. That's a whole different story.
Oh,
Never
Zach,
happened.
is
But
there anything else you want to share?
I don't know. I mean, I think this has been fun just to like talk and like when we talk for long periods of time on the radio, it's always like we got to go into a song or like into commercials or something like that, and it's very like few and far between where you get to like talk. We've talked for 55 minutes, so it's
Yeah.
like it's just I keep taking sips because I'm getting like parched. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of talking.
Well, when I hear you tomorrow on the radio and your voice is a little hoarse, I'll be like, that was me.
Yeah, right. I'm the reason why he's not on the
I'm the
radio
reason.
today.
No.
He woke up with laryngitis.
Well, Zach, I just
Yeah.
want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast and chatting with me tonight. It was so lovely to have you.
Yeah,
And
no, thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
all
I will
right.
come back at some point.
Okay. I don't want to push you because you're a maybe man now.
Do you
Not
do
a
you
yes
have
man.
do you have return guests?
Yeah, sure. I
Okay.
have it. I
All
mean,
right.
I have been doing a lot of interviews. It's been really great. I actually do have another one I'm doing tonight that's a repeat because we talked about the North Shore and now we're going to talk about some health issue stuff. So I work in the medical
Oh,
field.
cool.
So that's kind of my near and dear. So yeah, so that will be a repeat. That'll be fun.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
best of luck to you. I will make sure to share this out. Let's have this be the most listened to on our Best Behavior podcast ever.
Bring it.
I
All
love
right,
it.
Zach. I'll see you soon. Okay.
Thanks for having me, Kelly.
All right. Bye
See
bye.
ya.